I was a head girl at my senior school, and all my teachers said that I would get 9 A's and B's. When it came to results day, I ended up with just 5 B's and C's. It was a real massive shock. It just gave me the kick up the backside to make me pay attention and actually do the work. So finding out where the problem is the biggest part of entrepreneurship, I think.
Right.
And being honest about the fact that you might get this lovely shiny product, but if somebody doesn't want it, then you have to let it go. Fear of failure starts off with fear of what other people think of you. It's quite natural to worry about other people's perceptions, but you can grow a resilience to that. You can grow confident about how you respond and whose opinions you care about.
Hi, I'm Thea Cantaria, and this is Female Founder Stories, Women at the Top Told by a Teen. You and I are going behind the scenes of entrepreneurship, hearing from incredible women about the grit, the setbacks, and the breakthroughs it takes to build something real. No sugarcoating, no perfect Instagram version, just the truth told in a way that makes you think, I could do that too. Our guest today was disappointed with her GCSEs, and now she's saving millions of ears. Amanda Philpott is the founder and CEO of eargym, an app that turns hearing health into something fun and simple. She spent nearly 30 years in the NHS before starting her own company, inspired by her own hearing loss and her dad's dementia. Amanda, welcome to Female Founder Stories.
Hi, how are you?
Amazing, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's good to talk to you, thank you.
So can we start off back in your school years? So you said that you were disappointed with your GCSEs, and this teenage audience, many like me, have either got or getting our GCSE results, and it feels like the be-all or end-all in the moment. But what would you say to teens who feel like exams define their future?
Firstly, good luck to you and all of your colleagues and all your classmates. What happened for me was I was a head girl at my senior school, and all my teachers said that I would get 9 A's and B's, which at the time was a good standard. And so I just believed them, and I didn't really think about working too hard, and I assumed that I was clever enough to just get away with things. And then when it came to results day, I ended up with just 5 B's and C's, which is passes, but not very good grades. And it was a real massive shock to me, my ego. Not at all what I expected. And I remember thinking that I had ended any chance of a good future and a good education and a good career. So what that did then would make me reappraise my sense of just being naturally able to pass exams, and it made me refocus on working. And I was lucky that the 5 that I got let me carry on to do A-levels. And it just gave me the kick up the backside to make me pay attention and actually do the work and do the homework and do the background research and not be complacent in the future. So I guess as we go through this conversation, I'll talk a little bit more about the steps I took to build on that. But it was a really early warning sign not to be complacent, that it doesn't matter what other people say. You actually have to work hard yourself to be able to get where you want to.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least you had self-belief, because from all the entrepreneurs that I've talked to have said, self-belief is the most key thing is the most important thing when you're starting a business. So that's a positive.
Yeah. I suspect a lot of people will have said this to you, but I think especially from that point of, not doing what I should have done with my GCSEs, I have spent all of the time since wanting to prove that I am good enough, that I deserve, did college, do deserve to have a decent career, do deserve to have a business. So it sort of puts quite a big motivation, which has to be accompanied by self-belief that you can prove other people wrong.
Yeah. And then after that, you spent nearly 30 years in the NHS before founding eargym. So how did you make the big leap from like a public system to starting something on your own?
So I did that because, when I joined the NHS, I built my career in the NHS. I started as something called a Band 4, which is sort of middling admin role in information, after I did a psychology degree. And then I worked my way in the NHS. There's many different organisations like hospitals and ambulance trusts, mental health services and the like. And I worked in many different organisations and many different jobs and found my way the career ladder. But what motivated me all the way through was contributing to the population's health and well-being. So preventing ill health in the first place, and then providing really good care, or enabling my clinical colleagues to provide really good care. But when I got toward the end of my NHS career, I didn't feel that I had finished in terms of my contribution. My overriding ambition is to carry on contributing to health and well-being for as long as I live. So when I finished in the NHS, and the nature of the job that I had, I was a chief exec in the NHS, is very much focused on financial balance in the year. And I felt like I'd stepped too far away from the thing that motivated me, which is health outcomes. And so I left the NHS and I joined what's called an accelerator. So for entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs, join accelerators that are hosted by venture capital companies to learn what it takes to build a business that can get investment. And this particular accelerator was about building businesses that can improve quality of life for 100 million older people. So I figured the leap for me was half and half. It was a whole new world in terms of entrepreneurship and learning all that language and all how that industry works. But I still had the comfort zone of having worked for 30 years in health and well-being. So I had some knowledge of content. So I had at least something to hold on to whilst I was learning this whole new business language.
Wow. I mean, being able to, even just from my perspective, hearing about how to build a business, there are so many different factors involved in terms of the market and collecting data for that market. And so it must have been really interesting, actually, because I think that whole process, the whole journey is what makes the end product really interesting and amazing to find and have.
Yeah, and the biggest piece of learning for me going into entrepreneurship was you have to be solving somebody's problem. So it's absolutely no good to build the shiniest, most amazing piece of kit. The product can be brilliant, but if you're not solving somebody's problem, then nobody's going to buy it. It's, and you don't have a business. And so really, really understanding what the problem is that you're solving and who your customer is in that respect, and therefore who's going to pay for it, is something that has taken us ages, to be honest, because you think you know your customer. Like I thought our customer would be people who are worried about their hearing. But actually here we are 5 years into the journey. And what we know is it's the clinical and academic researchers who want our data, because we're one of the few companies that collect people's hearing data over time so they can see the impact of their own services. So finding out where the problem is the biggest part of entrepreneurship, I think.
Right.
And being honest about the fact that you might get this lovely shiny product, but if somebody doesn't want it, then you have to let it go. Yeah, it's a correlation rather than a causation, just to be, because my scientific advisors would make me say that to you, so I have to say that. So with dementia, two-thirds of dementias are genetic, but a third of them are more environmental. So of that 33%, 8% of all dementias, the biggest factor is hearing loss. And the correlation is hearing loss makes it really difficult to hear, in a noisy environment like clubs or cafes or restaurants, those places where we make our social networks. And so we go from hearing loss to social isolation. And when we stop communicating, when we stop being motivated to chat to other people, when we stop making cognitive conversation, then we can start to get mild cognitive impairment, and mild cognitive impairment is the marker for dementia. So that's where hearing loss has this correlation with dementia, and what very smart scientists have worked out that it's 8% of all dementias is hearing loss is the biggest factor. And some of the symptoms are really similar. So you may have seen it with your granddad, and I certainly saw it with my dad, is that the bit about just slightly stepping back from conversation, being really quiet when you're around the table, not quite following the conversation, maybe answering questions that don't make sense, having the television on too loud, or struggling in groups, or struggling on the telephone. And so what motivated us was a couple of things, because if we can say to people, just check your hearing, and if we can help you with your hearing, then that might lower the symptoms. It might enable you to stay more socially engaged. It might slow your rate of decline. It might mean that you never reach a trigger point.
Yeah.
So we don't know that. So what eargym wants to do, what we set out to do, and it links me back to my NHS career, we wanted to create something that would collect the data.
Right.
Scientists to know more about that correlation between hearing loss and dementia, which is why we've gone down the gamified app a bit of fun then.
And separately from eargym, or maybe it's kind of linked throughout, well, you mentioned that you've kind of had a fear of failing. but now that you failed many times and made peace of it. So what does failure mean to you now? Because like for me, I think failure has changed. The definition of it has changed. And I'm only 16, so changed throughout like parts of my life in terms of, oh, feeling like I haven't done enough of like schoolwork or like disappointing other people. That was failure to me. But I'm interested to hear what it is for you.
Yeah, but I'm really interested. You say it's changed for you. What's it changed to?
Well, I think when I was younger, and I think at least for most kids, we want to please our parents to an extent. Like, oh, I've done this. Like, oh, like look at this that I've done, or look at this painting that I drew, that I painted of you, or things like that. But now, failing for me is more personal. Like, if I know that I've done my best on something, then to me, whatever I get or do or achieve in that sense, then I feel like I can't fail, no matter the outcome. So I think it's
Yeah.
when I don't push myself to the best of my ability is when I feel like I failed myself.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant way of looking at failure. And I think I've probably gone on exactly that journey myself, but I think I've taken a bit longer to get there than you. So I think fear of failure starts off with fear of what other people think of you. And whether or not that's your parents or your friends at school or your peers at work or the people who are in positions of power, whether or not that's sort of informal or formal power. And you don't want to be embarrassed to do. You don't want people to think that what you do is a bit stupid or a bit silly. And you want people to think highly of you. So I think it's quite natural to worry about other people's perceptions, but you can grow a resilience to that. You can grow confident about how you respond and whose opinions you care about, because it definitely isn't everybody's. And so picking your influence, picking your friends and family wisely is a good idea in terms of whose judgment you care about is something that is really important. I wish I had more confidence to do earlier. But your point that you're already at is something that took me a long time to learn. There's a psychologist called Steve Peters. He coached the Liverpool football team and he coached the British cycling team in the Olympics when they were successful a few years ago. And essentially, his whole thing is enjoy yourself and do your best. So it takes, if you know that you have done your best and you have striven to enjoy yourself while you're doing your best, because you're sort of, that relaxes you so you can be an even bigger, better version of you, then I think that's enough. And I think a really, really good place to be. If in everything that you do, you enjoy yourself and do your best, then what more can you ask? You know, if you don't succeed in a particular objective, it just means you didn't succeed in that objective, but at least you tried. And I think what I've learned is it is so much more important to try, to have the courage to fail, than to sit quietly and not even bother trying. The sure way of failing is to not even try. The possibility of succeeding is because you tried. And, you know, every effort has a risk.
I think that's amazing advice, especially for teenagers now. There's a lot of, I think people are still growing towards the point where if like peer pressure, not even related to entrepreneurship, but peer pressure and all those kind of things. So I definitely think that's really important. But going back to eargym now, so it's reached like 1 million people with its age chat and you're collecting so much data. But what is the plan for the future? And are you aiming for like a new audience or a bigger impact, or are there any new goals that you're working towards?
Yeah, thank you. We continue evolving what we think and what we're trying to do, but our primary aim is to contribute towards improving people's awareness of their hearing health. So if you think about it, you probably have eye checks every year, every 2 years, you know, and your teeth, you must go to the dentist quite often and those sort of things. But so 1 in 2 of us will check our eyes and teeth every year, and only 1 in 20 of us will check our hearing.
Oh, wow.
And if you think about our worlds these days, most of us will wear headphones or AirPods or whatever, especially, you know, in noisy environments when we want to cut the world out, when we're studying or working. And that's actually as noisy as being on a construction site. And so you need to turn the volume down. You need to take breaks. You need to give your ears a rest, because wear and tear, those frequencies going into your ear literally just wear away some of the hair cells, and they make it so that over time, you lose the higher frequencies that are the beginning and end of words. And that means that you start to think that people are muttering. So what we're seeing now is and these are in global studies, we're seeing people's hearing is aging sort of 10 to 20 years faster than it was before the emergence of the smartphone and headphones and all this fantastic tech, because we are growing so much more into our ears. So firstly, there's about checking your hearing. And that's a key part of our ambition, is to make sure that people are aware of how their hearing is and how to protect it. So turn the volume down, take breaks, really important. Wear gig plugs. I don't know, I've got my loops for gig plugs as it happens. I wear hearing aids anyway, but I will also protect them when I'm in noisy environments. And that doesn't, some people are frightened that will ruin the audio experience, but actually it just takes the distortion out when you wear loops or something. It just takes the distortion out of some musical experiences, as good, if not better. And then after the awareness raising, you can train your hearing. So there's evidence that practicing listening with an app like eargym or auditory training, you can improve your overall hearing capacity by about 25%. And that's because the processing of the sounds that we hear is as important as hearing the sounds in the first place. And then when people are losing their hearing, so they'll be my kind of age, so somewhere between 45 and 65, when their age-related hearing loss is really picking up, having the confidence to go and get hearing aids means that they will have a better opportunity of staying socially engaged. And then you've got a much better opportunity of looking after your cognitive, your brain health. So in doing all of that, where we are going, our ambition is to have the biggest reach. And that's why we're now working with retail audiology, with clinical audiology, with drug discovery companies, to work with them to provide the data over time so that their interventions can be as effective as possible.
That's fascinating. And also, like, even the statistics about, I mean, for me, like, every single one of my friends and I'm sure all of the audience listening or watching this, everyone uses AirPods, headphones constantly, all the time, always have them in, and even like noise cancelling headphones too, which I just got a new pair of AirPods for my birthday, and they've been game
Brilliant.
changer because now it can be on like the tube and listen to my music without without any of the screeching of the tube.
It's about taking breaks, and it's about keeping the volume down, because there's something brilliant about noise cancelling, which means that you can lower the volume of the sounds that you do want to listen to, because you're not competing with the background sounds. Equally, there are pros and cons in all tech, and I wear my headphones all the time, especially on public transport, but it's about keeping the volume down.
Yeah.
And it's about just being conscious of what you're doing with your ears and giving them breaks every so often. But, all tech has fantastic opportunity, and all tech has risks. And most people aren't quite aware of the risks around our hearing, because it's not a widely known public health issue yet. But eargym is changing that, I hope.
Yes, I'm sure it is. It sounds like it is. This one, opposite to failure, it's about success. So what does success really mean to you? And what do you think that the biggest success that you have achieved in your life? Because often, I mean, success is different for everyone, right? Like, some people are maybe being able to balance their work life and their social life, or like hitting this position at work or things like that. And what do you think that your biggest success has been?
I never planned a career. I always just looked at the next most interesting opportunity. And the opportunity that comes with that was the opportunity to make the biggest difference. So looking around your community, however your community is defined, and thinking, can I do something of value there? Can I contribute something useful? Not everybody has the skills to do different, everybody's really good at something.
Yeah.
And pretty average at most things, and quite poor at something. If you go on that normal distribution curve, I think the thing I'm proudest of is making my contribution to population health and wellbeing. I'm really proud that my business has had over 1 million people checking their hearing. That's brilliant. And I'm sort of in the daily struggles of being an entrepreneur, and honestly, it's daily highs and lows. It's really, really hard persuading people to give you money for something that doesn't, that the market isn't created yet, and the product is a bit iffy, and all of those things is a really, really hard daily struggle. But it brings with it the joy of designing your own way to make your best contribution. I loved working in the NHS. I have fantastic colleagues, and we, did provide some really good services mostly. But we also got some things horribly wrong, got a bit more control with eargym and as an entrepreneur. But continuing to make that difference is really important.
Well, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your journey with everyone. Your story is such a powerful reminder that exams don't define who you become, and even not knowing what your career is going to be doesn't define who you're going to become. And what actually matters is the courage and determination that you have, and finding a problem that you are really passionate about and want to solve.
And what you're doing today is brilliant, because you're bringing this knowledge to people at the right time. Can I just do one last bit of advice, is build your networks. It's always other people that help you on the
Yes.
hard times.
Everyone listening, build your networks, keep checking up on your hearing, take regular breaks from your earphones and go check out eargyms, and keep turning your setbacks into sparks. Until next time.